A new study from Texas Tech University gives insight on hiring biases against those with mental illness. Texas Tech University conducted a peer-reviewed study dedicated to unveiling the bias in hiring applicants with mental illness. How did these findings impact the stigma that those struggling with mental illness face? And exclusive interviews with community members and their thoughts on this issue. Many Americans face discrimination while hiring. According to Mental Health America, 19.2% of Americans struggle with mental illness. This statistic gives insight on how some individuals may face discrimination while job searching and the impact that has on their employability. Stigmatized groups most likely to be deprived of certain life opportunities. Those with mental illness and prior involvement with the criminal justice system had the lowest probability of hiring. Even if individuals manage their mental illness, they still face discrimination from employers. The mental illness plus criminal justice applicant was more likely to be accepted if exposed to psychoeducation material. According to the National Institute of Health, psychoeducation is the process of teaching clients with mental illness and their family members about the nature of the illness, including its etiology, progression, consequences, treatment, and prognosis. Psychologists asked participants how likely they were to accept applicants for the position as a groundskeeper at an apartment complex. This study used yes or no responses. The applicants had all education and physical requirements. The study used different questionnaires such as GWBQ, AQ, SDS to measure certain attributes like behavior and familiarity. Maintaining employment for those with mental illness affiliation is integral to successful re-entry into society. Although mental health stigma has gone down, it is ultimately dependent on the perception of the employers and their opinion on mental health. Applicant performance was again lowest for the combined mental illness plus criminal justice applicant. In the study conducted by BMC Psychiatry, there were 137 participants aged 18 to 84 and 25 with psychosis. The interviews were conducted by psychologists. The psychologists asked participants why employment for those with psychosis was low, and asked what could improve their employability. Participants reported stigma and job discrimination while job seeking, including work avoidance and avoidance of employment support services. Those with psychosis had difficulty disclosing their mental health struggles. Employers tended to avoid employing those with mental health struggles. Participants stated they were ostracized by their fellow employees. Mental health bias impacts emotional well-being, recruitment, and workplace relations between employees. Discrimination has far-reaching effects for employees and job seekers with psychosis. Questions regarding bias and hiring the mentally ill.
Alright.
What is your name?
On.
Do you have anyone you know that struggles with mental illness?
I have my son and my wife.
Okay. How did your wife's mental illness impact her work?
Her work, she wasn't mentally ill at the time. After she retired, she got dementia.
Oh, okay. What about your son?
My son, he was good till okay till he got in a semi truck hit him, and he got a little, whatever they call that, disease or, illness, where you get angry at people, so he didn't deal with people very well after that.
How did that impact his working environment?
After that, he didn't get along with people as well as he used to. He had his own business, and he built houses and stuff, and had his alarm business, and he did very well until that truck hit him, and he started having that mental illness, But he's doing very well now, sort of. He's back building houses.
Was it hard for him to keep a job before he made his own business?
No, he always worked for himself at the time, all his life, And he come and kind of retired, but he went to work at a marina, and he didn't get along with the people there, so he quit. And he just retired for a while, and then he got tired, not doing nothing, so he went back to building houses in North Carolina.
Okay. Should workplace environments be more accommodating to those who struggle with mental illness? Should workplace environments be more accommodating to those struggling with mental illness?
Should they?
Be more accommodating.
They should, I believe.
Okay.
They just don't know it, and apparently they don't know, and the people didn't tell them, so they don't know, so they couldn't be helpful, in that area. I think the marina knew sort of, how he was, and they try to work around it, and but he just was working for himself. He was always wanted to do everything right, And when he worked with other people, they weren't working as well as he thought they should have. So he kind of retired from that.
Thank you.
Okay, so my name is Hayley, and I'm interviewing
Professor Mike Schramm.
Okay, thank you for agreeing to participate in our interview. We are looking for people's insight regarding the issues of bias hiring mentally ill. Your insight will be valuable in understanding different perspectives associated with the issue. So first question, can you share your thoughts on the topic of bias in hiring the mentally ill?
Sure. I think that sometimes certain employers might have a bias depending on the mental illness. I don't think that employers should, but I think it's normal. And I think that sometimes it's not fair. Mental illness can be a lot of different things.
Yeah.
From severe anxiety to, I have a dear friend that's bipolar. And so I think that it's probably natural, but I think there probably rules and laws against it. But it's, it is what it is. I've been on the hiring committee here at the college for math professors, and we interview and we ask questions, and it's human person-to-person contact on the interview, and you ask questions and you get to know the person a little bit, but I'm not sure exactly what level of bias employers are allowed to have.
Yeah. So do you believe there are some common stereotypes or misconceptions that come with hiring mentally ill?
Yes. I think that, you know, as a professor here, I have all sorts of students, and some students come into college and they have certain, I don't want to call it mental illnesses, but I think, you know, we're supposed to treat all our students the same. Employers are probably supposed to treat all their employees the same, but it still probably happens.
Yeah.
So,
All right. My name is Brooklyn, and this is Dr. Shram. I'm going to ask you a question. What do you think employers can do to create a more inclusive and supportive work environment for people with mental illness?
wow. Well, they have to have certain rules in place that, like an employee code of conduct, and I think that employers have to have certain, like, we have a faculty handbook that the college follows. I'm sure employers have to have something like that also in place.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Walmart's gonna have specific
Yeah, I agree.
rules for it, so that they try not to have that bias that we were just talking about.
Do you think that there's things that they can implement to better support people with mental illness?
They could have like workshops
Yeah.
and focus groups and training, especially for the managers. I'm sure certain companies like Publix and Walmart, Sam's Club, for example, they have to train their managers and their employees so that they don't
Exactly.
have that bias.
Well,
When it comes to hiring, you know, probably against the law to not hire somebody
due to mental illness.
due
Yeah.
to mental illness, but there's obviously a stigma associated with it. There's another word for bias.
There you go. Well, thank you for sharing your insights on the topic with us. We really appreciate your perspective. It
Oh.
helps us
You're welcome.
better
I'm here with Paris to discuss the bias against hiring people with mental illness. Thank you for agreeing to participate in this interview. Your insight into this topic will be critical in understanding the different perspectives associated with this issue. Can you share your thoughts on the topic of bias in hiring the mentally ill?
Okay. In my opinion, when it comes to hiring the mentally ill, people tend to be biased on the fact that they have a disability that may cause a ruckus or a lash out on the job. So they may be against or standoffish on hiring people with mental disabilities. Another thing is from my own experience, when trying to find a job with my mental disability, the interviewers tend to not reach back to me because they can see that I struggle with communication. When the hiring manager sees that, they tend to distance themselves from that and hire someone that doesn't have a disability.
Do you believe there are some common stereotypes or misconceptions that come with hiring the mentally ill? If so, please elaborate.
Yes, I definitely believe that. There's a misconception and stereotype on hiring the mentally ill. My reason for saying this is because others tend to think that people with mentally ill disabilities are lazy or will cause a chaos at work.
Have you ever observed or experienced bias in the hiring process towards individuals with mental illness, or maybe even stereotype because of mental illness?
Yes, I have experienced bias in hiring towards individuals with mentally illness through my own exposure. What I mean by exposure is what I explained previously in question 1. When I was trying to find a job and every time I would go to the interview, I was always freaking out, stuttering, shaking, or couldn't make any eye contact with the interviewer. So because of that, I would never receive a call back from them. I knew this situation may not seem biased, but this happened to me 4 times. My thoughts were that they didn't want to hire someone who would not be able to communicate with people.
Thank you for your insights regarding this topic, and thank you for participating in open conversation about the bias in hiring the mentally ill.